Okay, today I got a good one for you. I'm working on a 2011 Ford Edge, the V6 model, and the check engine light came on. The code is a P0303, and what that's saying is cylinder 3, something's wrong with it. It could be one of a few reasons. It could be the spark plugs, it could be the ignition coil, it could be the fuel injector, it could be a vacuum leak, it could be low compression in the chamber. Most likely it's either the spark plugs or the ignition coil, and I'm about to address both of those today, so let's check it out. Right here we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the 6 ignition coils, and you're looking right here, you say, hey, he's already taken everything off. I'm gonna do this a little backwards. I'm gonna show you what it looks like with everything taken off, and then I'm gonna show you exactly how you can take everything off. Right here, this is your ignition coil 1, 2, 3, then in the front 4, 5, 6. So number 3, this is the ignition coil or the spark plug. That's the issue. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to change all the spark plugs. I'm gonna take this ignition coil and then I'm gonna swap it over here with number 4. So just in case, if it is the ignition coil, I can simply change this one out at a later time. To get to this point, I took out this big wire harness right here. There's 1, 2, these 2 wire harnesses right there. I took them out just for clearance purposes. Right here is the manifold. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8mm bolts. This is the only one that comes out, and it's like 4 inches long. These other ones, these are little small ones, but they stay in, so don't worry about that. To take this out, on the back there's a vent line. You have another air line right here. Then you have another air line. Right here would be a harness. You connect another harness to the throttle body, and right here under the throttle body, you have under the throttle body, there's going to be one more 8mm nut right here. This is the one that you're gonna say, why isn't this thing coming out? So you're gonna have to come in at this angle to get this particular 8mm nut out. And then once you do that, this just pops off. You also have to take off the air housing, and that's just, you know, loosen up this clamp. You have a harness right there, and then you have another air line, and then you have 2 little plastic covers. Don't worry, I'm going to show how all that comes off. I forgot to mention, the purple microfiber towel, this is where the intake manifold was sitting, and if I remove the towel, obviously you do not want to drop anything in there. Can you see the rods down there? I don't know if you can see it, but that's where the cylinders are, and you can look straight down in there. So what I did, I put this microfiber towel over, because you want to drop nothing down there. Nothing. You know, since we're here, right here is your fuel rail line, and right under the fuel rail line, right here is your fuel injectors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you ever need to change your fuel injectors, those are right there. All I'm going to do is do the front 3 ignition coils, and then you just repeat the process in the back. I've already taken off the bad ignition coil in the back, number 3, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to do that. Plus, you should take them off. It makes it easier to take them out to change the spark plug in the first place. So what you want to do, there's this little red tab. You just pull it up with your thumb. Pull the red tab up with your thumb, and then you depress. You just push down. Gently push down, and just slides right out. That just slides right out. Then this is a 8mm. This is an 8mm socket. Take out your 8mm bolt. I already loosened it up, and the bolt, be careful because the bolt does come all the way out. The bolt does come all the way out. And then you simply pull out your ignition coil. Simply pull out your ignition coil It's just that simple. So I'm going to sit this ignition coil back here in the back, and I'm take the new ignition coil. I'm take the old ignition coil, and it's going to go up here. But before I do that, I'm going to take out the spark plug. I have my little 5/8 spark plug tool puller. Make sure, I don't know if you can see in there, but there's a rubber grommet. Make sure you have the rubber grommet. It goes onto the spark plug, pulls it out. Very simple. So, get you a better view. So there is the spark plug, and all I'm gonna do is pull it on out. Slide the spark plug down until you get a nice connection. And be careful when you take it out, you don't want to break it. Once it gets loose, I like to just take it out, hand loosen it, and there you go. So once it comes out, you want to inspect your spark plug. A little bit of oil, and actually this is pretty good because I believe there's 130,000 miles. These are the original spark plugs. Once you take the spark plug out, you want to check to see if there's no oil, there's no debris, that it's nice and clean before you put the new spark plug in. There's the old spark plug next to the new spark plug. I'm going with an iridium, so they come pre-gapped. You really don't want to gap an iridium, but you can check it, and they're all supposed to be 0.5. At least that's what the guy at the dealer told me. So all I'm gonna do is take this, the new one, put it in, hand tighten it. You want it snug, not overly tight, and then put the ignition coil back in. Like I say, you just want to snug them up, not anything overly tight, and then that's it. So I'm going to put the number 3 ignition coil. This is the one that's supposedly bad. I'm gonna put it right here in the front, so if it is bad, I could always easily access. These in the front are easily accessible. So if this one's bad, then the check engine light will come on and say, you know, cylinder number 4 is bad. But all you do, slide it down in there. You'll fill it. You'll fill the ignition coil, slide over the new spark plug, and you reconnect the harness. Push the red down. Put your bolt back in. Put your bolt back in, and you do that for the remaining 5, and you're done. Again, when you're tightening it down, the 8mm bolt, you are tightening it down into plastic, so you don't want to over tighten it. Get it snug, kind of grip up, have a high grip on your ratchet so you don't have that much power, and you know, you snug it up. I just got done changing the spark plugs in the back, and I put all the ignition coils back into their slots. So now all I have to do is connect the harness. As you see, you simply line it up and you just hear the little pop. Now I'm going to show you once more just how easy it is to put the ignition coil in and connect the harness. As soon as you put the ignition coil in, you will feel it line up over the spark plug. Take your 8mm bolt. I hand tighten it all the way down to as tight as I can get it. Reconnect the harness. Click. Click. Okay, that's all she wrote. Now let's recap. The check engine light came on, P0303. Something was wrong with cylinder 3. So what I did, I changed all the spark plugs, and just in case, if it's the ignition coil, I don't feel like taking all this stuff off again. So I took the ignition coil that was in cylinder 3 and I moved it up here to where it's so much more easily accessible in cylinder number 4. So now I'm going to put everything back together, and that'll give you a great idea of just how to take the stuff off. The first thing that you have to put back on is the intake manifold. This is a great time to check out the condition of your manifold. You want to make sure that your gasket is in good working order before you put this back on. And you have a perfect opportunity to inspect your throttle body to see if it's clean. If it's clean, go ahead and put it back on. If not, I'll put a link to a video showing just how you can clean your throttle body. Okay, now let's go ahead and put the intake manifold back on. Like I said, this is the first piece that you have to hook up. I'll zoom in so you can get a better idea of where it goes. But after you hook this one up, the next step is going to be right here under the throttle body. There's a bracket that it connects to, and then everything else you'll be able to see on top. Okay, so you get a sense of what you're looking at. The intake manifold is sitting on top of the engine, and right behind it there's the air line and there is the air tube. So I'm going to click it into place, and then, like I keep saying, that little bracket right there is what you attach the bolt right under the throttle body. Once you attach the line to the back of the intake manifold, then you kind of snake it through, you know, all your harnesses and everything, and you want to make sure that you have all the harnesses and nothing's under the intake. So you got one, this harness goes to the top right there. Then you have a vacuum line that comes on right here. You have this line. There's another vacuum line. It goes on right there. You have a harness to the throttle. Have a harness to the throttle body. That goes there. That particular one goes on right there. So you just have two harnesses, a vacuum line, another vacuum line, and then underneath, I don't know if you can see, but that's where that 8mm bolt that I was saying, it comes under the throttle body and it attaches to that back bracket. This is to give you an idea of where that back bracket bolt is. So as you see, the flashlight is leaning on the throttle body. I have this stick. I'm coming straight in here, and if you follow the stick, it is on that bolt. It's right there. That's the 8mm bolt. So that particular bolt is very important. Obviously, it's attached to the bracket. You would take all of the 8mm bolts from the manifold off, and you're like, why this isn't coming off? It's because of that bolt right there. So now the only thing left is just to start attaching, you know, the harnesses and the air lines, and then we'll move to the next step. To put the main harness back on, as soon as you slide it into place, this will just pop forward. And now you make sure that your intake manifold is positioned, and then just connected all the harnesses and the air lines. So now I'm going to line it up, tighten the intake down. This is plastic, don't overdo it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 8mm bolts, and then this real long one. This is the 7th one. It just goes right here. So you make sure everything lines up. I'll tighten these down, and then we'll move on to the air house. Okay, now that I've tightened them down by hand, this is a 12-inch extension bar, just if you wanted to know, 8mm socket. Now that I've tightened them down by hand, I will go ahead and snug them up, and I will go in a counterclockwise, not a counterclockwise, this side, that side, this side, that side, to tighten it down evenly. I can't reiterate this enough. This is plastic. You don't want to over tighten it. Now, at this stage of the game, you should have one harness connected to your throttle body, another harness right above the throttle body, which is to the left of the throttle body. This is connected to the intake manifold. Then you have an air line back here, another vacuum line up here. Then you have one more vacuum line that goes right under this harness. Everything over there is done. You've tightened down the intake. You've attached your main harnesses if you took them off, and you put these are just in their little clips. You put everything back, that's good. Now, the only thing I'm left with is the air housing cover. So, you have, here's a vacuum line right here that goes onto the side of the air housing cover. Here is one harness, and then you have that line which goes right here top of the valve cover. By the way, since you have this off, this might be the time you want to take a look at your air filter, and then a little clamp on your air filter, line the throttle body back up, get this vacuum line, goes right in there, plug your harness in, take your other vacuum line, take the last vacuum line. Alright, you heard the clip. Harness to your air housing. There's a little clips to check your filter. You have two. Here was the vacuum line that I was talking about. And then obviously, you can't see it, but it's just get a little screwdriver and tighten the holes to the throttle body. And after that, all you have to do is put this shield on. This shield, you snake it in here. After you put this little rubberized cover on top of the intake, you're just left with this one. You're going to have one 8mm nut that attaches right here, and then you have these two little pins that they just go into that, and then obviously the hole goes over the oil cap. So, looking at these three ignition coils, you can see how easily, look at this. You pull this off, and they're right there. So you can see why I took the initial coil from number 4 and swapped it with number 3 that's under the intake. So if the check engine light comes on, hopefully it'll say ignition coil 4 is bad, and then I just replaced this one. If not, then it was just the spark plugs. As you see, it's just that easy. It is easy. It was just a little tedious. It took me about an hour and a half. A lot had to do with the fact that I was filming, so it's probably not even an hour and a half. It probably wouldn't even take an hour and a half to do the whole job. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I called the dealer and they wanted $550 to do that job. I'm not saying that it's not worth $550, but to me that's a lot, and that's why I made the video, in case anyone out there also thinks that's a lot. Now you have a good general idea, more than general, you actually know exactly how to do it, but you have a very good understanding of how it should work. Here's an update. The car had a very bad hesitation. It lacked power and it was shaking. My sister was contemplating getting rid of the car. She thought there was something wrong with it. After I did the tune-up, everything has smoothed out. The check engine light went off by itself, and now the car is running fine and she's happy. Just to update you, because you probably wanted to know, well, did it fix it? Yes, it fixed it. As usual, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for watching. You guys have a nice one.